right, there we go. How's it going? Good to see you, as always. Um, all right. And as always, I usually kind of do a little bit of the recording before we actually get to streaming live. So when you see these sessions after the fact, there's a little extra on the beginning, isn't there? Yep. All right, so let me pick up my mic here a little bit. Check. It's pretty good. Monitor is good. And we will go ahead, hop back. It's that nice pretty title card and get our streaming going right about now. Thank you so much for being with me today. Hang tight and we'll be right with you. All right. There we are. And thank you so much for hanging out. So, yep, today is... What is today? Thursday? Switch that music up a little bit for us. Love it. All right, cool. So, yeah, welcome to Microdose. We are just kind of hanging out today. Today is kind of my first kind of real session, episode, whatever you want to call it. As always, once we are through with this, the recorded version will be available. So feel free to subscribe via Twitch if that is what you would like to do, or follow as well. But always remember, videos should be available at the YouTube page as well, and you can see that in the bottom left of the screen over in that direction. But yeah, and feel free to hit me up via Discord, Reddit, email also. We have the email address right in that blurb right there for Colorado Proposition 122. And we'll go ahead and get to it. So today I figured the best thing to do would be to kind of go over what we're doing here. Really, right now, it's just me wanting to get some like-minded people involved, just getting people educated about psilocybin, about magic mushrooms, about and other natural therapies and other natural things that can be used to help with a variety of ailments. I super duper dig psilocybin. I love that Colorado is opening up for more research and for more development of that kind of treatment, because it's fantastic. So yeah, as we're going through today, please feel free to any questions that anyone might have, feel free to fire away. Like I said, today we're gonna probably just kind of have an overview of what we are, what we do, and what the goal kind of is. And feel free to stop me as we go. So right now, as we are working on the website, I keep saying we, it's mostly just me, but I have a lot of help from my wife, who's a great graphic designer and super duper intelligent person. So Microdose, we chose that brand, so to speak, I guess, or that name, because it's cool. But yeah, microdosing or microdose, it typically refers to a small amount of a substance that's usually taken for psychedelic or medicinal effects. And the term in our case refers to psilocybin mushrooms, which are taken in very small quantities as far as microdosing goes, typically a tenth to a 20th of what you would consider a recreational dose. I do this all day. um, so yeah, it's no secret that people have been using mushrooms for their psychedelic effects in you could call it recreational sense. Absolutely, there's tons of recreational users, and that being people that, they're not exactly looking to go on like a shamanic experience. They're not trying to necessarily, you know, become gurus or anything like that, but they just want to have a nice experience. It's a fantastically pleasant experience sometimes, for most times, almost all the time. So yeah, recreational use. Microdosing, however, if you were to, let's say a recreational dose was, I don't know, say you started at a gram, which is a pretty small recreational dose. Some people still consider that a microdose. For instance, someone like myself, I microdosed at 0.1, which would be 1/10 of a gram. And I did that probably every 72 hours or so. So about every 3 days or so, I would be taking a microdose. And that's just based off of what I had learned and what I experienced and what I found to be. Well, let me lower this chair. I had found that to be good and beneficial to me. So that was my experience. 1/10 of a gram. I would weigh out a 0.1. And that would be, and I'd do those doses. I'd put them into gel caps because Lord knows there's a taste issue a lot of times. So, there you go, microdose. That's what it is, and what we're talking about most of the time. But along with that comes a whole myriad of other topics and questions and things that need to be discussed and taught. That's what we're here for. So yeah, as always, fire away any questions you guys have as we go. So as far as facts go, we answer questions about mushrooms that produce the prodrug. Sorry, it's hard for me to read my own words on this screen. The prodrug compound psilocybin. Prodrug being, in its simplest terms, for physicians out there, please don't get mad at me. But in its simplest terms, it's a substance that once it enters the body, it helps to produce another compound, I believe. And again, I am still learning all these things, so I'm probably mostly right in what I'm saying. Stop me if I'm wrong. I'm here to learn from you guys too. So anyway, we are very much trying to get towards a people-centered experience and an experienced-centered resource. So what does that mean? People-centered? It's about people. We want people involved. I don't want to be a talking head who's just always the guy that you see all the time. I want people smarter than me to come hang out with me, because that's how we grow, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for folks that know, what they're talking about as well, to boost this and boost me and boost us as a group. So, let's do it. We're going to provide outlets for live online Q&A discussions about topics and related topics. In addition to everything we just talked about, well, how do I even get it going with this? That's a lot of people's first questions. It's great, sounds good. I can't go to Walgreens and pick this up, so what do we do? We're here to help. Cool. So connect, assist, and grow. We basically want people to connect with us on Twitch, just like you're doing right now via this channel. I love Twitch. It is a fantastic, fantastic community and a fantastic resource for so many things. In addition to just chilling and hanging out with people while they're playing games. And you can subscribe to this channel should you choose. I think it's $4.99 is what Twitch subscriptions are, and that should give you access to like these recordings after the fact. I will always remind us though that these recordings are available on YouTube, and I'm going to keep them free of charge as much as I possibly can. That's my goal with all of this, is to keep everything free. And allow you or anyone that is a fan of this cause and a proponent for this, if they want to see Microdose to continue, at least at this point, it's going to be pretty much donation based. So, we're going to keep it that way as long as I can. Because generally this community is uplifting and it is supporting, and when they find something that they do have value in, which hopefully this outlet or me as a person, you will perceive value, they donate. So you'll get to know me. So yeah, assist. You can absolutely do this depending on where you are in life geographically, mentally, and physically. Their path varies. Why am I reading it like that? These are my words. Basically, we just want to assist. We want to make sure that, you have what you need in order to get where you want to get. And to that end, we understand, or I understand, that depending on where you are, like we said, geographically, mentally, physically, it might be easier for some people than others to actually, complete this kind of therapy, whether it be on their own or with a physician or with a treatment center. So we're here to help. Please send emails, microdose@gmail.com, that address that you're seeing right over here. Boop. And I'm here to help and grow in general, and as a person, grow spiritually, grow in strength, and of course, yeah, if you can, grow some mushrooms. We'll talk about it. Gonna talk about it. So, why are people using psilocybin? Now, listen, we're not gonna go point by point. This isn't a staff meeting, but in general, it's improving people's mood. It's improving creativity, problem solving. It's reducing addiction, substance abuse, which is huge. But really, one of the biggest things that I can speak to personally is just the potential for this medicine to really just kind of elevate you mentally to a place where you wanted to be and knew you could be. Especially someone like myself who is trying to constantly, I don't know, what's the word? I'm trying to be a more Buddhist about everything. I'm a terrible Buddhist. If I'm a Buddhist, I'm an awful Buddhist. But a lot of us are, so that's cool. And this is something that helps with just the connection without so much of the attachment, which brings so much of the stress. And I mean, I could wax on about it all day, and anyone who's been there knows exactly where I'm coming from. It's the benefits are not, they're incontrovertible, and they're irrefutable, and they're indescribable. That's where a lot of the tragedy for me comes, is because I really would like to be able to describe exactly what that help feels like up here, but it's just better. It's just better. And we'll get into that. That's something that we can get into on a certain episode. Maybe we'll have a couple people that I can actually kind of, bounce off of each other and talk about that, the benefits of it. But it's insane how helpful it can be. So that's basically where we're coming from there. And I will say, this section down here, I always say it's worth noting that much of the research on psilocybin is still in its early stages. More studies are absolutely needed to fully understand its potential and therapeutic benefits and risks. And additionally, psilocybin is a Schedule 1 substance in the United States, meaning it's illegal to possess it for use for any purpose, including medicinal use, without special license from the DEA. However, there are ongoing efforts to reclassify psilocybin and other substances to make them accessible for scientific research and potentially for medical use. That's why we're here. So, that's it there. It's right there, black and white. But being a citizen and a resident of Colorado, being Proposition 122 being the way that it is, it's opening doors for us, and we're taking steps in that direction. We don't want to. No one wants to make waves. No one wants to cause any trouble or anything. But you got to do what you got to do for your health and your well-being. And we're taking legal steps the correct way. So, we're just going to do what we can do. And hopefully we don't offend anybody. But I don't think a person's access to medicine, and that person making medical choices that pertain specifically to them and don't affect others. Come on. I don't want to get too crazy or political or anything, but that's not crazy or political. That's just me saying, come on. So, all right. Go ahead and come out of here for a minute. So, what are we? What's step one here? What are we doing as we're doing broadcasts and doing these recordings and trying to build up a little bit of a base? What are we going to start doing here? What are we going to plan? What's the end game? I would say the biggest question everyone's going to have is, how do I, if I haven't tried this, how do I get to try it? And what is the procedure, once I have the medicine in hand, how do I take it? That's one of the things that really is kind of the biggest pain in the neck right now, is that there's no, there's no real measuring, as far as you take something like Tylenol and, that each of those is, or 250 or 500 milligrams. You understand that you take this amount for this ailment, for this person's weight, their metabolism, their age. Right now, psilocybin and mushrooms, it's simply not how it is. Now, we could get into extraction methods. We could talk about different ways to, so to speak, harvest that psilocybin, because you absolutely don't have to just take mushrooms and eat them. You absolutely can, everybody knows, I'm so sorry, not everybody knows, but a lot of people know seasoned recreational users, I would say, know that you can make a tea. You can cook them into chocolate, as long as you don't. A certain temperature range will destroy the compound. So that's something. Again, we don't have to get into all of that, but yeah. Long story short, there's different ways to take psilocybin. Absolutely. As of right now, though, the average user is going to have a mushroom. It's the easiest way. So yeah, at that point, that's why we're trying to build a little bit of a community, because it takes a little bit of an experienced hand to give the confidence to someone that is using a psychedelic substance for the first time, medicinally or otherwise. So, but anyway, that would be the first question people are going to be asking is how do I get my hands on that? I would say that, when you have the time to put into it, growing your own is absolutely the best way. It's the safest way. It's the easiest in terms of just keeping it simple. But the trade-off is, of course, time is the trade-off, because when you begin, just to let's go ahead and get something queued up here. One sec. Get this going. Do 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 do. There we go. All right, so this is a website that I am aware of. Not endorsing them. I'm not endorsing them. I am aware of them. This is a site that allows you to look at spores for microscopy purposes, such as investigating them through your microscope to take a look at what they look like, and to study them, for mycology reasons. Sporeworks.com. And from this site, you are able to order liquid culture syringes or spores. So liquid culture and spores being two different things that will get you to roughly the same place. When mushrooms are fruiting, fruit being, this mushroom fruit that you're seeing right here, this is a mushroom. Come on, where's my cursor? Right here. See that guy? That's called fruit. Mushroom fruit. Just like an apple or an orange or a pear. Fruit. The mushroom structure itself, the mycelium, or the additional part of the mushroom, is underground and unseen. And those structures can reach for miles. I think the largest organism in existence is actually a mushroom or a fungus. Anyway, when those mushrooms erupt and when they grow to the point where they tear the veil, you might be able to see some of those guys have a little bit of a veil still. But anyway, where the bottom of that mushroom cap, meets the stem, there's a veil, and it stretches until it finally breaks. Spores are released. It resembles dust almost. It's very small, very small. Those spores can be suspended in fluid in these syringes, and you could purchase them. And those are basically your seeds to begin growing mushrooms. Whether it's actually, I don't think lion's mane grow that way, but there's a whole host of mushrooms, both medicinal and gourmet, that you can order spores for from a site such as Sporeworks. Any quick search on a reputable search engine will deliver you all kinds of results for spores. Okay? You simply order those, and Bob's your uncle. You are good to go. So, in addition to spores, you might have noticed liquid culture syringes. Now, liquid culture syringes are similar to spores in that they will allow you to grow a mushroom. However, the liquid culture is actually a liquid mycelium. Mycelium being the structure that is underneath of the ground. So when you get those syringes with the liquid mycelium, they do tend to yield, well, I would say, maybe quicker results and a little bit more thorough results. And we'll get into exactly what that means in just a sec. But yeah, that's the very beginning. That's where you start. You know, if for some reason you don't just happen across a field of wild psilocybin mushrooms somewhere in the cow patties, this is how you begin. You order syringes for mushrooms, be it these lovely oysters or these morels. What is that? Shaggy mane. Love it. I mean, there's a whole world out there of mushrooms that are just great for you in so many different ways. We won't bore you with that. We're sticking with the process. Okay. So, you've got your spores, you've got your liquid culture or whatever you decide to go with. There's another whole host of sites and stores and books that can help you on with the next step, but I'll just show you one that has proven useful to a lot of people. Let me move this microphone. I'll probably pull up on a Google search. There they are. So this is Midwest Grow kits. I will say these people have been very reputable and handy. So this is an example of a site, a vendor, a company that can help you with the whole rest of your process because they understand that people are getting into this and they've really kind of jumped in front of it, which is great. I've been cruising their site for years now, and you can actually, take your morels, your oysters, or your medicinals if you are living in a place where you're allowed to do that, and you can get kits. So these kits contain multiple elements, things that are going to be helpful to you. And of course, they come in all shapes and sizes. The variance that you're seeing here is mostly just how many mushrooms are you really trying to grow, and all of these things, as much as I love this website, and they are super handy and reputable and great to deal with. But you'll notice that a lot of the implements that they're using here, these are things that you can, if you are looking for a super small kit, you can spend an afternoon and comprise a kit like this. It'll cost you a couple bucks. I mean, not much at all. These folks here, Midwest, they obviously, they've been doing this for a while, and they are able to offer you kits comprised of these units and devices that obviously they're getting cheaper than you're going to be able to get them. So if you're looking to build a kit like this, check out Midwest, because if you try to build this exact kit on your own, it's going to cost you a couple bucks more. I've tried, and I will say I've been a customer of Midwest before. They've treated me well. Let's see. And so basically, I will kind of use their site here as a kind of tool to show everybody what I'm talking about here. So these are substrate jars. Now you can use so many different things for substrate, okay? So many. And what you're seeing here, these jars, is what it's a method called PK Tech, which basically is just using the jar as the vessel for the mycelium's population. You're letting the mycelium grow in the jar until it gets all cakey and white, and then you're using that cake pretty much on its own. Anyway, so to explain it more plainly and stop kind of curtailing around it like a nerd, you take one of these jars. You have your syringe that you ordered. It's full of liquid mycelium culture or spores, okay? And in a sterile, clean environment, still air environment, as clean as you can make it. There's lots of methods for this. You inject the mycelium or the spores into the syringe. That's how that goes. And once that is done, you put these jars into a dark, warm environment where you would, where you'd normally expect to see some mushrooms growing, and that the liquid mycelium or those spores begins to colonize inside of that substrate. These jars, I believe, are probably a mixture of brown rice flour and vermiculite, which is nourishing and good. I've used that PK Tech several times with great results. But like I said, so many different kinds of substrate that you can use. This is just one example of one that you can get, because they've found that this works fantastic. So that's why they sell it. That's why people keep coming back for it. They pressurize and sterilize these jars at their facility, and they come sterile and ready to go. As long as you can provide a sterile environment, and ideally like a still air environment where there's not like a whole lot of wind blowing or anything, you're good as gold. So yeah, that's the next step. You've got your liquid culture or your spores, and then you use something like this to introduce that spore or culture to, and that does your colonization. Cool. So in addition to these guys, there are also bags. Now the benefit to bags, like for instance, this is rye grain, okay, that they have sterilized and put into a bag. You can see that there's a port, little black port in that bag for you to inject into. It's self-healing, so that it keeps the germs out, because these are also sterile. The benefit to these guys, okay, is that, so remember those jars we looked at a second ago? They're full of that vermiculite, brown rice flour, just real nourishing but also sterilized substrate for the mycelium to grow. If you use these bags and you introduce your culture or your mycelium to these bags, the mycelium and the culture, they will they'll nosh on that rye grain and they'll grow, but these guys, since they're not glass, you can squish the bag up a little bit and encourage them to spread, and then once they really take off and you've got a big bag, you can once again kind of break those grains up a little bit in that sterile environment, and you can have what they call a monotub ready, full of an additional substrate, and you can add these grains to that, and it's a monotub. It's just a big tub that then populates with your mycelium and that new substrate, and you get a big white loaf of mycelium that will in the end yield some mushrooms for you. So there's that. That's just a real brief overview of what these bags are, because I'm sure people, when you get to looking around and getting to shopping around, you're going to see these bags. You're going to wonder what the difference is. There you go. So there's that. And really, it's just about, like I said, like everything else, just like those grow kits that they're offering, the different sizes, it's just about what are you really looking for? How many mushrooms are you really looking to get? And a lot of folks on their first go round, they're just trying it out, keeping it small. So, but it's good for you to know what these are. So as far as bulk casing and growing, these are casing mix, substrate. Casing just meaning, think of putting something in a case. It's in a case now. You're taking, it's a method of taking your substrate and then putting like an additional layer over the top. That's not really so much substrate, it's like a casing mix that kind of like protects it from like outside bacterias and molds and stuff. Because when these mushrooms, when they first get started, they're so fragile. They'll just die. And I mean, like, they need an environment where there's no competition. So casing mix can help with that, and that's just a basic, and then it looks like Midwest has a substrate, bulk substrate combination. Yeah, I mean, this is even a substrate mix. Anyway, yeah, they even have a kit that you can do, bulk growing casing kit with a dome. Yeah, see that right there? That's like I said, you can build something called a monotub, where instead of having these jars, you have just a big loaf of mycelium that just does a forest of mushrooms. Versus what I will show you here. Let's just take a look. If I just type in PK Tech, I'm sure, or PF Tech. God, I said PK. It's PF. What a dip. Anyway, guys, thanks for forgiving me on that. I know you will. So yeah, check out the jars. We were just looking at those. So if you could see here, this has a line of white mycelium that is now starting to populate inside of that jar. And then once they really get going, let's find a good example. Someone took a photo of a good jar. I have tons. I should have been ready. See this here? This is looking pretty decent. It's got lights of there's two different kinds of mycelium growths. God, I'm not gonna get nerding out on you. I'm not gonna start nerding out. Anyway, it's got pretty good stringy mycelium growth. It's looking pretty strong, and depending on where this is in its journey, you might give it a little bit longer, or you might just be like, hey, it's time to go. Ooh, look at that. That's kind of neat. They look like they just caked them right inside the jars. In vitro tech. There's so many different things to be looking at, guys. It's so cool. It's such a cool world. Anyway, we're going to stick with PF Tech just to show you guys what we're looking at here. And then basically, just like I showed you, once those jars, let's open this in a new tab. Once those jars really start to populate, you're going to move on to the stage called birthing. You're birthing these cakes into the world. And it's just beautiful. It's a pretty decent job there. You can see underneath of these, the growers decided to place foil squares. It's fine, great idea. It's not necessarily, it's not critical, but you're gonna notice a lot of times those cakes, those mushrooms start to grow out of the bottom, and the cakes will just lift. And if you don't have that foil there, they'll grow kind of like into that gravel, and that is perlite right there. Perlite being a fantastic substance to use in a tub to keep that moisture up, because you're going to need moisture in there. We'll get to that. But anyway, like I said, you've got your jars, you've done your liquid culture, or your spores, you've introduced it to that substrate, whether you purchased it online or you made it yourself with tons of recipes that are available online. And now you're looking at a bunch of jars that have this white mycelium all through them, just like you're seeing here. What do? Well, you can go back to the Midwest people and take a look at what they have available for you, and you'll see that one of the things that they keep is the tubs. See the tub there, and the perlite, bag of perlite. So basically, you take your tub and you take your perlite. Can I just make that a little bigger? Yeah. You got your tub and your perlite. You soak the perlite so that it's nice and wet and moist, and then you drain it so it's not just sopping. And you line the inside of one of those plastic tubs with that perlite. You can put the little foil squares down, and then you carefully, in as sterile an environment you can provide, earth those cakes and place them onto the little foil squares. At this point, I could go on and on and on about the environment that you provide for those cakes. But basically, you want the humidity as high as you can keep it. You could buy a humidity meter and keep it in there. And you want the temperature to be in I think it's like around the high 70s. And again, for different mushrooms, it's different environments. You want to make sure that you're kind of, when you have the opportunity to get your spores, your mycelium, more than likely they're going to let you know what the strain is. So you should be able to research with our wonderful internet exactly temperature ranges for those fruits specifically. But that's that. I mean, you're going to take perlite and you're going to put it in the tub and provide a moist, warm environment for these cakes. Fresh air exchange is also pivotal because the fresh air hitting this mycelium is what triggers the fruiting in most cases. Because the mycelium normally is under the ground, and then once it gets to the top and it's up here and it starts to feel that fresh air, that's when it's like, all right, it's mushroom time, and it'll start to grow mushrooms. So yeah, fresh air exchange, that's why they give you a pump with these kits, as you can see. You can see here there's a water heater, an aquarium water heater. That is to provide a good environment for your jars while they are sealed and growing, colonizing that mycelium. Because a lot of people, I don't have a basement or anything, like a nice warm dank space. So, they provide you a double, kind of like a double boiler heater system for these two tubs. One sits inside the other. The water provides a jacket, and the heater provides warmth to that water jacket and keeps that whole environment. You can do that with the second stage as well, if you're feeling froggy. And they might even recommend it. I did not. Like I said, I live in Colorado. It is a dry and warm environment most of the time, so moisture was my issue. And if that's something that you have questions about or have needs, let me know. I can help help you figure out exactly how I tackled that issue. So yeah, we've talked about how you begin. We've talked about getting your spores. We've talked about getting your Ord liquid mycelium. We've talked about PF Tech and how it's generally the easiest way to get started. Mono tubs are simply, in my opinion, mono tubs are great. They're just adding another step in order to increase your yield, because these cakes, depending on how good you do and how diligent you are about the work that you do, they work fantastic. Get that back to 100. They work fantastic, and you can do flush as long as you're keeping them clean and doing a good job. Mono tubs are just kind of like the next step for someone who's really figured out how to keep their environment clean. They've figured out, how to do the inoculations, how to do colonizations, and they're just really feeling good, and they want to kind of take it to the next step. Monotubs are awesome because, like I said, you're letting your jar or your bag colonize, and then once you've got that, that colonized mycelium, instead of just birthing a cake into a warm, wet environment, you birth your colonized grain into a big tub full of substrate, just like would be in those jars. And you seal that and give that its conditions, which you can absolutely look up how to do monotubs. And of course, I'll get into that for you at another time. But you just let it colonize again. You're adding an extra step. You're adding an extra colonization step. But once that does occur, and if it does happen the way that it should, and you do a good job, I've seen some really beautiful results from people that are just starting out. Just really, really good stuff. So anyway, there's that to keep in mind. So yeah, we're talking about, we got our spores, we got our jars, we've done our birthing. Now, as far as environments go, like I said, general rule of thumb, fresh air exchange, while also keeping it sterile as possible. So, HEPA filters are good. Even just a little bit of like cotton in the line, as far as like the airline, that can help keep that particulate out, to keep any other like mold spores, stuff like that. Anything's better than nothing. Having holes in that tub, and again, this is all stuff that gets covered in the kit directions, but like you'll notice they'll put holes in tubs for fresh air exchange, but they'll have like HEPA filters sealed over top. You want fresh air exchange while keeping your temperature at the right level and keeping your moisture at the right level and keeping all the foreign germs out. It's pretty simple. I mean, I know it's a lot to say, but it's pretty simple. You're providing a clean, warm, moist environment. Once you've done that, once you start to see your fruits, you harvest. Take your clean hands, and a lot of people tell you pick rather than cut. If you're very good at picking, they'll grow in that same spot again. If you cut, they won't grow there. You left a stump. But there's all kinds of different ways to pick and harvest. And like I said, if you are very diligent and you do a very good job, your flush will continue. You'll notice it'll flush and it'll flush and it'll flush, and you'll keep getting more fruits until ultimately they dry out and they just don't, have anything left for you. At that point, there's all kinds of things you can do. Being in Colorado and being such a dry environment, a lot of times I can just leave my fruits out with a fan blowing over top of them and they'll dry out, if that's what I'm looking for. Fresh mushrooms are fantastic. The gourmet kinds, like I said, the morels and the oysters and the lion's manes, they're delicious and they have fantastic medicinal effects. If you are trying medicinal psilocybin mushrooms and trying them for therapeutic purposes, you will read and learn that the fresh ones are different, in that you need to kind of imbibe more of them if you want to feel those effects, but they are so much better tasting than when you have to take them dry. However, dry mushrooms last much longer in easier environments. You can keep them in a cabinet. So, something to keep in mind there. But that's basically where you're at. You have the fruits at that point. You have to decide whether or not you're going to dry them out. You're going to use them fresh. They can be frozen, I've heard. I've never tried freezing them. But being that mushrooms are very water heavy fruit, the fruits that we're picking, they're full of water. They're mushrooms, and water, of course, when it is frozen, expands, so it will destroy the cell structures of those mushrooms, and once they thaw, they'll be mushy. So that's a texture thing to keep in mind. And we're just waxing on at this point, you know. That's basically the life cycle that you're looking at, you know, as a person who's going to get into this on your own. Um, you know, it's just a basic overview of what you're looking at for that first real question that most people have, which is, what do I do? You know, like, what are my options as far as trying to, um, you know, obtain this substance? Say, you know, if I was somebody who had lived a different life, but I'm still living here in Colorado, I could be right down the street living a completely different life and not have any idea how to begin a journey like this. That's how it would begin. If you're looking to not have to go looking around, you know, it's like if you couldn't find tomatoes at the grocery store, where would you get a tomato? You'd have to ask around, you know. And if you don't feel like doing that, this is what you would do. You'd get some tomato seeds and you'd grow them yourself. And this is what you do it now. You basically, you know, depending on how much you want to put into this, how much money and time, most, if not every implement needed is available to you online. So take charge and go for it. That's what I say. I am here for you. You know, I'm here for you. If you have questions, please find me on Reddit, on YouTube, on Discord. Send me a message to my email. Let me know who you are and what you're doing, and I'm here for you because this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. I am going to go ahead and cut us short now. We've been on for just shy of an hour, about 50 minutes or so. So I will say thank you so much for hanging out. It was nice to kind of go through that first little dialogue because that's always the first question. And as far as getting there, that really is the best option. If you have the time, you've waited this long. That's what I'll say. Most people that are like that don't have any idea what to do, they've waited a long time anyway. What's another couple of weeks? You know, yeah, it could take, as far as like once you put that spore into that first jar, it's a couple weeks. I mean, I've seen them populate crazy strains. I've seen populate in a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes three. Once you hit a month, most people say once you hit a month, you're about where you're going to be. That's not going to get much further than that. But as long as you do a good job and follow directions, and have a little bit of guidance, me or anybody, you'll find that it's not rocket science. People have been doing this for centuries and centuries. Mushrooms are very easy to grow. I think they're easy to grow. You might find people who disagree, but people have been doing this for centuries. You can absolutely do it. It's really just a matter of deciding that you're gonna. So, and that is always the first question. What do I do? Well, there you go. I will try to make sure that this is available on YouTube as soon as possible. So if you're seeing this anytime other than right this second, more than likely you're seeing it on YouTube. So that's a good thing. As always, Mike Rowdos, MICROWDOS at gmail.com. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, please do hit us up on Reddit, YouTube, Discord. Not a fan of much else, guys. I'll tell you. So that's where you find me. But otherwise, thank you so much. And we'll say goodbye for now.